greatest. Cleveland, this is for you.
Sixth NBA championship, and it's their second three-peat.
And we're locked in. Max and Dave here from the Locked In Sports Podcast. What's going on, Cuzzo?
Cuzzo, doing good, man. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. There's been the NFL Draft, Avengers End Game, Game of Thrones, Michael Davis UFC debut, then the NBA playoffs. There's just been so much entertainment going on.
I said it. I think it was the greatest entertainment weekend probably of my life. And before we get super started, big shout out to our man, Jeff. Winners Bar. It was amazing. Mike Beast Boy Davis, his debut fight in the UFC. Man, it was awesome to see everyone representing Pete White Boxing, representing Port Orange, 386, representing Beast Boy, Locked In Sports Podcast. So big up to our big guy, Jeff, there at Winners Bar in Port Orange, Florida.
Yeah, had a great time there. It was so cool just to see Mike on television. UFC debut, a week notice, moved up a weight class, fought at 155. Normally he fights at 145, and he had a very respectable performance. I can't wait to see what he can do at 145 with the full training camp. Got the jitters out of the way. I think he's going to do some big things in the UFC, Dave.
Oh, absolutely, man. You know that 145 is his home. I cannot wait. And like you said, a full training camp, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and to know who he's going to fight and kind of set up a game plan. You got great minds in the corner, like with Pete White and the Professor John Rafford. Oh man, it's going to be electric. But I thought the whole card was awesome. I'm not going to lie. Maybe the main event names because of Yoel Romero kind of not being in that main event against Jacare, and everyone was kind of sleeping on Jack the Joker. So people slept on this card, but I loved it from day one. It was an ensemble. To me, it was like the movie Avengers. There wasn't one main star. It was 11 guys kicking butt the whole time. Glover Teixeira, Greg Hardy from American Top Team with our main man, Billy Patton. Platinum Mike Perry with his best performance maybe in the octagon. I love the card, Max. How about you?
Oh, yeah, it was very entertaining. And it was like the Avengers because if you look at it, just the way the card was constituted, you had Mike Perry, Jacare, Saunders, Michael Davis, all from that Florida region, that fusion, that Pete White Boxing and MMA. So it really felt like we were connected to the card a little bit more than others that may have been tuning in because we've seen these guys train. We've seen them in person. So to see them enter that octagon, knowing how much work they put in behind the scenes, kind of gives you a better sense and understanding of what it's like to be a professional athlete. It's awesome to see them on TV, but the amount of blood, sweat, and tears they put into it isn't fun. And that's what these guys do. So it was really cool just to see, and even Greg Hardy we saw train. So just to see everybody put all that work into a beautiful piece of art inside the octagon is really cool.
Max, you're even skipping maybe our funniest story ever in the Locked In podcast history. Andre Arlovsky putting 9 things around his head and running with weights over his head and outbeating welterweights in a race. He was on the card. Glover Teixeira, who Pete and we were hanging out with his crew over there for island fights in Panama City. He was on the card. It was epic, man. I loved it. It's so great. We're talking to him, like you said, seeing him train, interviewing, podcasts. It's just been great. So it's almost like family, when they go in there, especially Mike Davis. He's family to us. He's been cool with us since day one. Made the announcement on our show, Locked In Podcast. So all big ups to Mike Davis. I cannot wait for his next fight. Hopefully it's in 2-3 months. Give him time to rest, give him an opponent, let him train his tail off, and I guarantee I will lock in a W.
Nice. I have a really cool off-script thing, too, here. I think, so we had Avengers End Game, which I predicted would be my favorite movie of all time, and it even exceeded those expectations. And then, of course, $1.2 billion on opening weekend, setting a record. Infinity Wars had the record. They beat that by $560 million. So, of course, it's a box office success. But what's incredible to me, one, I'm not going to do any spoilers, of course, but going into it, my expectations were my favorite movie. I don't know how in the world they even exceeded that. So that's unbelievable. And then, of course, we're both big Walking Dead and Game of Thrones guys. That was the huge battle scene. It's actually the longest battle scene in television history. And I knew that going into it. It beat the Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings. A little nerd fact there for you. And going into it, of course, really high expectations, right? It's Game of Thrones. I'm going to throw something out there. Of course, it was a great episode. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. But I have two criticisms. Can I spoil a television show, Dave? Like, if you haven't seen it by now, like, you know what I mean? Like, is it okay to talk about the episode or no?
I don't know. I would say no. I'm so against spoilers, so I would probably say no. Can you talk around it, or are you going to break the news? Are you breaking the news here on the Locked In podcast?
Okay,
wait, breaking news.
I won't spoil it, but I have two criticisms. One, a lot of the action scenes are really hard to follow. Like, very dark, very mucky, and then you're like, who's actually fighting who? Is the good guy winning? Is the bad guy winning? So it was kind of hard to follow, but of course the things that you did see made up for it because it was awesome. And the other thing is, I think the ending I really like because of what happened and who did it, but it seemed kind of unrealistic and un-Game of Thrones-like. So I know everyone wants to say it's the greatest television show greatest television episode. I've seen that on Twitter. And I'm like, no, it definitely wasn't the best television episode, especially for Game of Thrones. It was really, really good, but it wasn't like the best episode I've seen.
Wow. Okay. We're here, so let's go with here. For one, I think I just liked it more than you just hearing your, constructive criticisms, which your first one to me is very relevant. It was really dark. But that's just like how they wanted it with the Night Walkers and the zombies, and they wanted it dark and like the dragons with so much fire. It was so smoky and it was dark. So that is a very, good take by you. I love the ending without spoiling it as well. I loved it perfect just because it set up so much. I love the episode. Absolutely loved it. Pins and needles for an hour and 26 minutes. It was amazing. The two things, one, I agree with you. For one, Battle of the Bastards is my favorite episode in TV show history. I just loved it. It's because, I don't want to spoil that either, but just if you watch that episode, it's the best ever. It's the best action scene. You feel so satisfied with the ending of that episode. So that's my favorite one episode ever. But here's my that's funny you said it. I wasn't constructive criticism about it, but I did say this. I talked about it this morning. I felt this episode should have been the finale to me in the whole show. Like, to me, it was the White Walkers and against men. They built this up for multiple years. It's literally been a 2-3 year arc that ended on the third episode of this show. And now, like I said, after the show was over, I was like, what can they do to top it? Like, I felt like my stress, off the show is over. And I know, there's going to be crazy turns. Probably some big people are going to, because they king or queen or whatever and don't want to spoil anything. But I know where it's going. I just felt they should have flip-flopped it. And this should have been, to me, kind of the end. Like, this has a finale feel to it. But we're only on the third episode. We got like 4 or 5 episodes left.
Yeah, I think we have 3 episodes left. It's kind of hard to expand. I don't want to spoil it, but I do get what you're saying. That does make sense.
Yeah, it just felt like this was it. Like, this was the big, huge fight scene. We've been waiting years and years. It delivered hour and 26 minutes of just pure action and fighting. And even just the arc they brought you on this one episode. Wow. It was just emotionally draining. Talking about emotionally draining, Endgame Avengers was amazing. And more emotionally draining, you are a New York Giants fan, and they drafted Daniel Jones from Duke at number 6. I'd laughed because since the Locked In Sports podcast, I'm not going to lie. I'm the 3 major sports, Yankees, Knicks, and Bills. And for the last 20 years, Max, the Yankees have been great, winning championships. That's why Derek Jeter would go on the road trip with me. My old-time favorite, my first puppy was named Jeter. But the Knicks and Bills have been so disappointing. year after year. Bills 18 out of 19 years not making the playoffs. The Knicks is the dumpster fire of the Eastern Conference for over 2 decades, everything. And you have always been a LeBron guy, but last year you're like, hey, I'm going all in with the Lakers because of Magic and maybe a possibility of LeBron. So you went all in with LA. And a couple years ago, you went all in with the Giants. Odell, they used to have a really good, smart front office. And so we made our trenches. And I got to say, Max, I feel the tides are turning. The Knicks and all this good mojo of trying to get Zion in the draft lottery, all the free agent money. And look, everyone tells you Durant's going there. Maybe Kyrie too. They're the 2 best players in the playoffs right now. It could be Celtics, Warriors. Who knows? And the Bills with drafting Josh Allen, who I didn't like, he had a great rookie year. And then the Bills had a great draft. And to me, the Giants and the Lakers, who've been excellent for the last 10, 20 years, winning championships, their front offices are getting mucky and controversial and just making bad, bold moves. So what do you feel about this? Do you like my arc? Or I know you're not a fan of it, but do you like kind of the idea of where I'm going with it?
Well, first you mentioned End Game. There's one scene in that whole movie that is the most iconic scene to me out of any film, TV show. It's my favorite scene of
100% agree.
Yeah, of all movies. I'm like, okay, that gave me chills. I watched the game. I watched it on opening night Thursday and again Saturday morning, and that one scene got me the same way on both times. So that, for one, you guys will see if you haven't seen it yet. And then to your arc theory, you're right, but I still think we have to wait to see how things play out to say if it's fully correct. I won't disagree with you that the Giants front office is a mess or the Lakers front office is a mess. So for that part, you're completely 100% right, because we don't even know what's going on with the Lakers. They have friends interviewing the coaches. It's like, I don't disagree with that, but depending on how next season plays out, and who knows, I mean, I'm not a Daniels guy. I obviously wanted Haskins. I obviously wanted Sam Darnold. But I just want to see how it plays out, because they did have Peyton Manning refer to get him, and he had his word. And I would listen to Peyton too, but my whole thing is this. They're like, oh, well, he's similar to Eli. We're done with Eli. Look, he won us 2 Super Bowls. I get it. We gave him his money. He's been celebrated. We don't need to keep trying to be like Eli or to compliment Eli or to reassure Eli or to not upset our fan base about Eli. So let's give someone that is similar to Eli. Like, it's okay to move on from a different quarterback. I'm pretty sure people moved on from Peyton. I'm pretty sure people will move on from LeBron. People moved on from Jordan. People moved on from Pippen. It happens. It's the cycle of life. It's the cycle of sports. So I agree with you about the front office aspect. I just want to see how it all plays out in order to see if you're fully right.
Wow. And you said something that was like, and you know, those Looney Tune movies, it's like the big words come off the screen. It's like, wowzer, or Batman, wham. They drafted a guy like Eli Manning, but now in 2007 and 2011, you can win Super Bowls with that guy. But the game changes. In NBA, Steph Curry wins championships, not those big centers like Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid like they did in the 80s and 90s. In football now, these old dinosaur quarterbacks don't do it. These slow guys who hold on to the ball so long in the pocket, who's not athletic and can move, those guys don't win championships anymore.
Yeah.
I know you could say Brady, but for one, Brady's the greatest quarterback ever, maybe the greatest football player ever. And two, he throws the ball quick. Like hike, throws the ball, hike, throws the ball. Eli is a plotter and a 3-5 drop step back and then throw the ball over the top. That's not what Brady does. And they drafted a guy who maybe would be great, Max, in 2002. But it's 2019 and you're moving forward. I just don't get it. And then everything in life, and John Middlecoff had the best analogy of it, it's always about value. Always. People, if you go to a car dealership and you love that car, Max, that's you will look up, that's the car you want, and it's a 2019 Kia, and they're usually $17,200, and that's the one you want. But they go, hey, it's $60,000 today. You would say, no, thank you, sir. I'll come back tomorrow, or I'll go back to another dealership. You don't buy that car for $60,000. And that's what they did with Daniel Jones. Like, even if that's the guy and that's the one you want, you could have drafted an absolute monster stud at number 6. Everyone thinks you probably could have got him at 17, or what you could have done is you traded your 17 pick and maybe a fourth or a fifth rounder and move up to the 14th, 12th, or 11th spot and, and then get your guy as well. So you get 2 guys. It just, God, to me, it was bad. You don't draft Sam Darnold, you don't draft Dwayne Haskins, and then you go all in with Daniel Jones? Man, Max, it's bad. Like, I think it's going to be one of those, I don't want to say mess up your franchise. It just sets it back. To me, it sets it back multiple years because now they're going to have to use another high draft pick on a quarterback in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now.
Yeah, and I think if you look at all the successful organizations in any sport, the Warriors, the Patriots, the Yankees, even the Houston Rockets, you have to be able to change and adapt to the way the league is played, like you said, in analytics. And, of course, you don't have to go all in on analytics, but you have to be willing to adapt and change the game. The game is always evolving, and they just don't do that. And I think that's what the Lakers is also struggling to do is LeBron, in my opinion, like I said, I still think he could be the greatest player in the world. We'll have to see how next season plays out. But even if he is, that's not enough to win a championship. And I feel like they're trying to hit the home run instead of trying to adapt with the game. You have to be able to have a head coach that's aware of analytics. You have to be able to have the GM. You have to have the front office that's willing to adapt and understand what a roster needs in 2019-2020 NBA basketball, which is shooters. They didn't even get shooters on the team. So we'll see. Like I said, I agree with what it is right now. I'm hoping like the Lakers land a home run. They get Anthony Davis and Jimmy Butler. Who knows? Maybe Kyrie Irving. Who knows? And then who knows? Maybe Daniels works out. If I had to bet money, he doesn't. So it probably is a setback on that end for sure.
Yeah. And one last thing on football, and, maybe a week or 2 weeks or a month, before the season, we'll break down teams and records and talk about Kyler Murray in Arizona. I thought they had a great draft. A couple other teams I thought had a good draft. And I thought the Bills honestly had a really, really good draft. But there is one thing I kind of want to talk about in football. And it's one of those things. I heard it. And I didn't think I was going to talk about it, but it hit me a couple hours ago. So I was like, yeah, we have this platform, so I'm definitely going to use it. And you and I think we smartly stay away from, the Tim Tebow, Colin Kaepernick's, Ray Rice. I think guys, we just talked about at the beginning of the show how great of the entertainment weekend it was. Maybe the greatest ever of our lives. It was that big. Mike Davis End Game in a Game of Thrones. I told everyone it was amazing every night. And we do this show for entertainment and for fun. And we want people to laugh and listen and theorize and debate with us and, talk about it at the barbershop. That's why we do it. But there's just something that I got to bring up. It's Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And you know this about me, Max, and I listened to and I thought about it so much. I listened to Nick Wright. Me being a father of 2 boys and then hearing everything that Tyreek Hill has done to his son and everything he did to his, at the time, girlfriend or the mother of the child when she was pregnant, and that's why he got drafted late because what he did, and everything that's came out through legitimate phone conversations. Bro, it's sickening. It's he shouldn't even I don't care about him not playing football. Like, I want that man to go to prison. Like, if I saw that man in the streets, we would have words. Like, I don't care about his athletic ability. Who he is as a person is scum. It's beyond disgusting. That boy can't handle himself. That boy can't talk back to him. That boy can't defend himself. And how you do it is gross. And I just think it's this, hey, if you don't agree with me, you don't agree with me. And you can, every man can do their own and be their own man, be their own father. But there's nothing better. There's nothing more precious in this world than being a father and being a role model to the kids that you brought into this world. And for him to spit on that blessing, to me, it's just disgusting. It's horrendous crap, Max. It's nasty.
Yeah, I was about to say, for those of you that don't know, without like going into too descriptive detail, and if it bothers you, you don't have to, but can you at least inform them at what happened? Because if nobody understands the situation and they hear you saying this, they may say you're being a little rough. You kind of hinted on it on the spitting aspect, but can you maybe go a little further in depth for those that may not know?
Sure. One, he makes his boy like hold his hand out wide and punches him in the chest. This is a 3-year-old boy, a toddler. And, you know, Tyreek Hill is an NFL athletic player and is a man. And to literally hit your son in the chest and to tell his mom that he respects me. And they talk about whipping with a belt.
Yeah.
Leaving disgusting marks. And, you know, I know that's an old school thing, and it's kind of just not acceptable anymore. You know, I definitely understand about punishment and keeping your kids in line. But, you know, to me, I don't think you need a belt. I don't think you ever need to cross that line of hurting your boy. And his boy feels threatened by him and is scared of him. And the mom is scared of him. Like, that is the last thing in life that I want my boys, you know, to be scared of me.
Yeah,
like, I want my boys to love me. I want them to respect me, and I want them to, you know, be good kids. But to feel scared when your dad walks in the room is a horrible, horrible way to start a life.
Yeah, should be a hero. And and I know it is descriptive, and maybe some people don't want to hear it, but I just wanted them to have the full story before they just hear what you're saying. Because, no, it's flat out awful. And like you said, I think forget about football. It's more about him as a person now. Athletics shouldn't be in the discussion anymore. That should be the last of anybody's worries about can he compete in the National Football League. That's out of the question now. So I hear you. I agree with you. I just wanted to make sure people knew exactly what happened instead of just hearing our responses. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, definitely let's take a left on this topic. Let's talk about great entertainment. Let's talk about the NBA playoffs. We're here, Max. We're in the Final Four in the East, the Final Four in the West. I know you're pumped. I know deep down in your soul you are an NBA guy. We're all in. I said it. This is it. We always say it. Sometimes it's the best time in the world for sports, and I feel like we're in that moment now. Like, all these teams could win the championship. All these teams could be swept out of this round. It's amazing. I definitely want your takes, your hot players, your hot teams, who you think is going to win. You can go on one series or all of them. You are one of the smartest NBA minds I know. So, hey, I'm here to listen.
Thank you. You too. But the number one series that stands out to me is the Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors, which is the second round matchup in the Western Conference, but really feels like a Western Conference Finals matchup. And you could argue that they're the two best teams in the playoffs. It would feel like a finals matchup, but just because geographically where they're located, that is impossible. They're both in the Western Conference. But all that being said, after last year going to 7 games in the Western Conference Finals, we know these two teams are a rivalry. If Golden State does have one, it would be them. I think the Houston Rockets are a better team than last year. I like the addition of Farid, even though he didn't play. I think he's injured. PJ Tucker's playing very well. Obviously, Clint Capella, James Harden, Chris Paul. We know the crew. Eric Gordon. I like Austin Rivers off the bench, who didn't play as well. Illness, I think. Then we also have the Warriors. Stacked team. Boogie Cousins is injured. Draymond Green played very well in Game 1, but didn't have the consistent ability to play at that high level that he did in previous years, so he's deteriorating. Klay Thompson was banged up. Steph Curry was also a little banged up. Iguodala is a little not the same player, and a depleted bench. So if there's any year that the Houston Rockets beat the Warriors, it's this year. And after last night, Dave, I did predict the Golden State Warriors would win this series in 6 games. It may go 7, but I think 6. This would be the year that the Rockets win, though, and I do see that happening, but if I had to bet money, it would be the Warriors, and last night was a perfect example. I think the Rockets should have won that game. If neither team really played well. The Warriors turned the ball over nonstop. It's just the Rockets are so worried about getting that foul call instead of actually just playing basketball. They're like the guys at the YMCA right now where It's like, oh, that's a foul, that's a foul, that's a foul. It's like if you were actually less worried about the foul and just worried about playing, you probably would have scored right there. And that's what I felt they got a little into, because there were a couple plays where Klay Thompson didn't let him land. And based off how all year the refs have been reffing the games, that's a foul. And of course, things are different in the playoffs. They're more physical. But I think that actually threw them off their game, because now they're so worried about what's a foul and what's not. Chris Paul literally argued every single play. There was one point where I even paused it and replayed. He's arguing with the ref in transition and didn't even realize KD was way ahead of him and got a fast break layup. So I'll let you take it away with that point and that premise, because I think this series should be about who's the better team, and I feel like the refs have stole the whole narrative, and I can't stand that.
Okay. Oh, it's a great point, Max. Like I said, I love your mind about the NBA, and we're in it. But with all that being said, and I thought it wasn't the best referee game of all time, sometimes you got to let it go. Watch the movie Frozen. It's a great song. You have to let it go. But with 32 seconds left, the Warriors were up by 2 with the ball. So with all this being said, and it wasn't a good game for Chris Paul, I don't think they got the calls that they probably should have got. It was a 2-point game in Golden State with Kevin Durant going off. If Steph Curry doesn't make that 3, and I know that's an if, who knows what happens? They might steal game 1. I felt Houston played a B- game, and they didn't get the calls they should have got. And they still almost beat Golden State in game 1.
That's true.
I'm telling you.
That's true.
I'm still doubling down. I'm all in with the Rockets upsetting the Golden State Warriors. And if I could, I'm going to lock that in. That is my locked in. It would be one of the biggest upsets, because going into the season, the All-Star break, going into the postseason, the Warriors were the heavy favorite. They're the 2-time defending NBA champions with 5 All-Stars. So with all that being said, I still like Houston. I still think at the beginning of the game, they started 0-8, 0-9 from the 3-point line. So I think Houston will shoot better in game 2, and this is called how it is. The squeaky wheel gets paid. I think Houston will get the foul calls in game 2, and they're going to take over this series. And then when it goes back to Houston, I think they can sneak out both of those and take a 3-1 lead from Golden State. Golden State comes back, holds the court, and then game 6 in Houston, the Warriors will get knocked out of this postseason. I really do, Max. I'm all in with it. I think that's how it's going to go. That's my take. That's my call. That's my locked in. I love it. And I also like the other 3 series. I just can't wait for the Blazers Nuggets. And you think, if you heard this game in November, it would be no biggie. But I just like how both of those teams are on a upward projection. Both of those teams are kind of playing better than what people thought going into this season. And they just have good momentum. And, to watch Damian Lillard, you can argue he is maybe the best watch right now in the NBA. I love his mojo, his momentum, the swag. He can shoot from the logo Lillard. Max, I'm loving the West. I will be staying up every night late on this East Coast in Florida watching the West Coast NBA playoffs. Oh, yeah, every night. But, no, I agree. I think if there's any year that the Rockets beat the Warriors, it's this year. And I do see that happening. I'm just going, as a betting man, if I had a bet, I would pick the Warriors just because I have more confidence in Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. But I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because I want to see. Of course, I don't always root for the underdog. I do like the favorites. They're just the ratings show it. But I do want to see the Rockets upset it, and I just want to see what happens to the Warriors. Do they bounce back? Do they disperse and go to all these different locations? I just think it'd be a huge storyline. It would be something interesting, something new. And I do think you brought some really good points. All of those things working against them, and they only were down 2. But I could rebuttal and just say the Warriors had 25 plus turnovers and still won the game. So there's 2 ways to look at it, and that's why I'm so interested in game 2. I agree with you. I have Houston winning game 2, and then, like you mentioned, the Damian Lillard versus the Nuggets. I have the Trailblazers winning that series. I know the Denver's deep. They're different. They're not the flashy, flamboyant team, even though,
Jokic has some great passes and some great buckets, but I have Damian Lillard. I think he's just special. I think he has that mojo, like you said, this postseason. I think he gets past Denver, but the East is where I really want to dive into, Dave.
Okay, just real quick, my last take on the Nuggets and Portland. I think Denver's been underrated all year long. People didn't think so. A lot of people didn't have them beating San Antonio. And I love their home field advantage. And the last thing, I'm not going to give you a pick. I just want to be the devil's advocate of Portland won this emotionally charged series against Lillard's rival of Westbrook. And Lillard hit maybe the best shot in the NBA since Kyrie Irving's Game 7 shot in Oracle. So I just think that people in Portland, the players themselves, are just like kind of on that high 9. And it's my call of Game of Thrones. We just saw the best episode. Like, I'm going to come down. Like, I was on the edge of my chair watching it, and so was the Blazers. I just feel they're going to come back down. And Denver's got good momentum. They just beat San Antonio in a Game 7. And I know it's not the Tim Duncan Spurs, but Max, it's still Greg Popovich. It's still the Spurs. That's a great win for Denver, who hasn't won a playoff series in over a decade. So I just would watch out for Denver in a quick series. If Portland can get their mojo back and Lillard goes off and it goes deep, yeah, then, you might have to go with the best player in that series. But I'm just watching out if Denver can win a real quick Game 1 and Game 2 in Denver and get that momentum, they might take it.
No, that's a good point. It's a very good point. And then in the East, Milwaukee versus Boston Game 1. And then we, of course, Toronto versus 76ers. Do you know Milwaukee had like the biggest loss that a number 1 seed has had in Game 1 since like the 80s? I did not see that coming. I have Milwaukee. You convinced me. I have Milwaukee winning this series. I think I put 6. I didn't see them losing that badly at home. I'm not going to overreact and say that now Boston is the favorite. I still think Milwaukee will win the series. I was just surprised on how well they played Giannis. I mean, Al Horford is so underrated defensively, and just that whole team, the schemes, Brad Stevens. I think Giannis has a very big game in Game 2. I think he bounces back. He's aware. He's familiar with how Boston plays. Of course, they're not going to run the same schemes, but I think he understands how they do things. And I think we're going to see a monster game from Giannis in Game 2. But did that not shock you?
It did. It didn't. It's, for one, Kyrie Irving and Brad Stevens can do amazing things. Brad Stevens was the coach from last year that everyone thought was the best young coach in the NBA. Other than Popovich, he was the next guy. Kyrie Irving, you know how I feel about him. Just clutch, an unbelievable scorer, can get anywhere, can just really lead a team. I thought that was the missing link with Cleveland, of course, last season. So with Kyrie being there and him playing great, they're the only team that has not lost yet in this NBA postseason. So Boston could get the job done. I'm ready to see what Milwaukee does. They got to change up. I think coaches are going to move some things around. And I agree. I think Giannis will have a monster Game 2.
And then we have the series between the 76ers and the Raptors. In my bracket, I put the 76ers win. In my heart, after watching them defeat Orlando, I knew they were going to win that series, but just watching them, yeah, they don't have the all-star lineup like the Philadelphia 76ers do, but they're a better cohesive unit. That just, Siakam, like I said, could be one of the most improved players in the league. Kawhi Leonard, Lowry, Ibaka, Gasol, just veteran guys who know how to win games and know their role. Danny Green, champion, can shoot, defend. I just think they're a better unit. I'm just curious to see if the 76ers' overall talent, because sometimes no matter how well you've played, no matter how great your schemes are, your game plan is going in, talent prevails. Most of the time. I just want to see if that can happen in this series.
No, that's a good call. You need Jimmys and Joes. That's what they say. You need talent. Above all, Greg Popovich is still the greatest coach maybe of all time. But, DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge is not Duncan and Parker. You're not winning championships anymore. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But to kind of roll in the East, yeah, I like Toronto. I think Toronto's going to run through Philly. 5 or 6 games, and I'm still a Buck guy. I'm going all in. I've convinced you in it, so there's no way I can jump off the train. It was a bad game one. It happens. The Warriors lost to the Clippers 2 times, right? Like in Golden State.
Yeah.
So, when you have bad losses, sometimes that is good for the team. It wakes them up and motivates them. I think Milwaukee's going to be strong in game 2, and we're going to see what happens in the rest of the series.
Yeah, Clippers took them. It's like the Warriors are a better road team than a home team right now. The Clippers took them to 6 games. So according to Dave, I'm assuming you would have the Rockets and the Bucks in the finals based off your prediction with the Golden State game. Do you have a favorite going into that game? You don't have to give me your pick, but do you have one that you'd be like, is it obvious or it's definitely a really good series?
The Bucks and the Rockets?
Yeah, if they both went to the finals.
Oh, man, that's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. I got to see how they both play throughout. That's my prediction. That is my call. I do have the Rockets and Bucks in the finals. I'm really all in with the Bucks. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud right now and on a sports podcast. I just think Giannis is the best player alive. His MVP season, the rest of their team, they don't have we talked about this, about how a number 2, but they have 5 threes, and they just all can intertwine. Their bench is awesome. Their home court is great. Brook Lopez, an underrated big who can shoot threes. I like the Bucks this year. And if I could say, I know there's no one can stop him or Durant, but just with Houston, the same thing. I think Houston, if they beat the Warriors, that would be their finals. That would be their moment. And I think they would kind of come back down to earth. It would be hard for them to pick themselves back up. The Warriors are the favorite, brother. They are. But if I had to call it right now and pick an NBA champion, I think I would go out on the limb and say the Milwaukee Bucks.
Wow. That's pretty cool. And forget about Battle of the Bastards from Game of Thrones. It would be Battle of the MVPs, Giannis versus Harden, to whoever wins at the MVP.
It would. That would be one of the greatest episodes ever, like the Bastards. But okay, I got another left field for you. You ready?
All righty.
And like you said, we watched game 1 of the Rockets and the Warriors, and we saw that the Clippers played the Warriors tough, unbelievable. You got to give a lot of respect to Beverly and Lou Williams. But it made me watch and realize how great Kevin Durant is. And it's never talked about, and I want to bring this to light, and I want to talk about it with you and see what you think, and kind of I want you to theorize and kind of put into the future. Why can't Kevin Durant be a top 3, top 2 NBA player of all time? He always gets pigeonholed in this, probably not better than LeBron, and this is kind of LeBron's era. And I just think with Kevin Durant's ability and how the game is going, I think Durant's got multiple high peak years left. If he wins this championship, 3 straight, could be 3 straight NBA Finals MVPs. He's got the MVP from OKC. And the same thing, he will get so much more respect, I think, long term, that he took the Thunder to the NBA Finals. And it's going to be one of those things when we look back 20, 30 years, be like, wow, the Thunder's a disaster. They've only made it to 1 finals in their whole life. Oh, they lost to the great Heat and with Wade and LeBron, and Durant took them there. Wow, that's awesome. And the future is going to be humongous for KD. If he goes to New York and this thing happens with a Kyrie or a Zion or both, and if he can do something there, or if he stays in Golden State and wins 4, 5, 6, because no one's ever won 4 straight. If KD stays in Golden State and they win 4 straight, why can't Kevin Durant be an all-time? The points will pile up. The man can score 32 a night whenever he wants. And he's, to me, always going to be able to shoot. Like, he's going to have the longevity of his career is going to be incredible, I think. And I just think Kevin Durant has a shot to be a top 3 NBA player of all time.
Well, of course he has a shot, but you said, regarded as right now, right?
No, not right now, just in the future, because we talked about 3 years ago, LeBron was put over Kobe. He probably wasn't there right then, but we all knew LeBron was going to have more years. He took another team to the finals. His points keep adding up, and he had a horrible season, Max. But let's give LeBron credit. When he played, he was 28, 8-8. He's incredible when he's on the NBA court. And next year, his numbers will be phenomenal too. So you kind of you put in this stock of, KD's got 5 more years of averaging 29 points a game.
I wouldn't say 5.
Really?
No, because he's 30 now, and he's not. I don't think he's going to average 30 when he's 35. I think he'll be really good, but he is on the back nine of his prime. And now,
how old is LeBron James?
LeBron James is the only player to be the best player in the league in year 16. So I'm not going to compare him to somebody who is an outlier. I'm going to compare him to NBA history. I mean, even he's similar to Bird and Dirk. I mean, he's different, but he's similar to them, and they weren't able to do that. I think he'll be really, really good, but I don't think he's going to average 30 and as 35 years old.
Maybe, okay, not 30, 27, 28. To me, LeBron does 9 things better than Durant. But the one thing, I think even with LeBron would admit this, is he doesn't shoot and score better than KD. Yeah. KD, I can argue, is maybe the greatest scorer or the most versatile scorer in the history of this league.
Yeah.
So I think Durant, even in his elder age, will still get buckets.
His form, his height will allow him to do that. That mid-range shot on the block is unguardable. So he has a signature shot that LeBron doesn't have. Kareem had it. MJ had it. Kobe had it. Shaq had it because of his size. He'll always have that to rely on. Dirk had it, so he'll always get buckets, and I agree with you on that, just off his pure size and his skill. Now, to answer your question, the reason why he's not regarded like that right now is you mentioned the top 3. We would say LeBron James, we would say Michael Jordan, and you can say maybe Kobe, you could say maybe Magic Johnson, but let's just stick with Kobe right now because that just seems to be the name we're talking about. And if you've noticed, every single one of those guys have won it on their own. And yeah, of course, when LeBron went to Cleveland, he did have Kyrie. But he went back to Cleveland, and that team didn't make the playoffs. And you could say whatever you want about Miami, and even though he didn't join a super team, they formed one, he won one in Cleveland. Michael Jordan stayed in Chicago and won in Chicago. Yeah, those guys came to him, Scottie Pippen and Rodman, all those guys, Phil Jackson, but he won in Chicago. Kobe Bryant won with Shaq, but when Shaq left, he also had to go through his growing pains, and then he won without Shaq. In order for Durant to get that respect as one of the top players, because I don't know if you remember this, I said he was better than Bird years ago. I said this guy has the chance to be better than Bird, and people laughed at me. You laughed at me. I said this guy has the skills. And my point is, if he were to go to New York and win it, then 100% he's in that conversation. But the fact that he went to the 73-9 Warriors and he does this, it takes it away. And it was a smart move. I understand why he did it. It's fun basketball. He can just play and just score and win. But there'll always be an asterisk there because of what he did. I mean, you can't – when you have Curry, Clay, Cousins, Draymond, you should be putting up easy numbers, especially if you're Durant. There's so many different weapons to worry about. They can't plan for just you like they do for Giannis. They can't just double team you because they have the 2 greatest shooters on either end. So if he goes to New York and does this and dominates and wins a ring, then we can't say anything. Then, yeah, he knows how to win games and win championships. But if he just stays there and wins, there will always be an asterisk there to this day. And it may not be fair, but I just think that's how the people perceive it.
Oh, I'm happy you said that at the end, how you're – and I think you and I are kind of on the same page with what Durant did, and a lot of people look down on it. And it's laughable to me. I've always said this, and I always supported LeBron James, and I probably always will to the day he dies about, oh, guys, he went to Miami and he joined Wade and Bosh. Guys, Cleveland was awful. The owner is a bad person and couldn't get good players around LeBron. And you live once. You only have one NBA career. He just wanted to win championships and to play basketball with great players. And if I'm a mixed martial artist, right, and, some of the greatest fighters in the world, Joanna, How about Jorge Masvidal? How about Dustin, the Diamond? American top team has some of the greatest coaches in the world with one of the greatest mixed martial arts facility of all time. Like, wouldn't you want, still bring some of your people, some of your home root people with you, of course. But wouldn't you want to train an American top team? If you're an NBA basketball player, Kevin Durant looks down on that decision going to the Warriors. Shouldn't you look up and be like, wow, Durant was a smart man. He made a smart business decision for his career, a smart basketball decision. It's great not to be double team, Max. If Fox Sports goes, hey guys, Locked In Podcast, it is probably the greatest sports podcast in the world. We want you on Fox Sports after Colin Cowherd's show. Or the Orlando radio goes, hey guys, how about you keep grinding and keep going up the charts and you'll come here in 3 years. Well, Max, I'm taking Fox Sports. Like, that's the dream. You want to be in a great situation. I just don't understand why that's looked down on.
And I get that, but what I would say, you mentioned the MMA thing. It's like Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture are one of the greatest rivalries ever. Or it's like Conor and Khabib. And it was like, imagine if Conor just went to go train with Khabib for wrestling now. And they became best friends. And Conor got really good at wrestling. He went to somebody he lost to. It's like, and it may be smart because now Conor learns how to wrestle better than anybody, and now he becomes a better fighter. But we're all going to look at it like you had to go to Khabib, the guy who beat you. And that's what it's like with Golden State and the Thunder. It's like you're up 3-1, you lost to them, and then you joined them. And now you're riding Curry's coattails and Clay's coattails. And even though he's the best player on that team, we all know it's Curry's team, it's like you had to join them to win your championships. And all those points you said I agree with and are true, but that's not how everyone else perceives it. And I guess it's going to be a debate till the end of time because I think I see both sides. Even though I lean more towards you, it is a smart move for him as a basketball player, as a business guy to invest in tech. He's happier. I encourage all of that. And that's why I don't take it away from him. But I do see the other side of things as why people may not look at him and give him all the credit for these championships.
No, of course. And for one, I liked your Conor Khabib point. The two rebuttals I would have with that, one is this is a team sport that 5 players start, 7 people on the bench with a coach, and you need multiple players. It's more of a team. Mixed martial arts is in the cage, it's one-on-one.
Right.
So if Conor went to Khabib, like, he can't win that championship if you go to Khabib and train with him, if that makes sense. Like, you could go in a team sport and win.
Yeah.
So that's my one little rebuttal on that. But then, two, even with that, it's not the worst decision by Conor. And other MMA fighters have done that in the past. You need to improve your game. And just say if Conor wants a future in mixed martial arts for multiple years, I don't think so. And that's one of our Chick-fil-A bets that I will cash in sooner or later. But he might have other fights. How about Jorge Masvidal versus Conor McGregor? How about McGregor versus Justin Gaethje? There's other humongous big fights in the future for Conor McGregor. And maybe him learning techniques from Khabib if it wasn't such a blood rival. And I know it can never get to that point. But it's not the worst thing in the world is to learn new techniques and to make your game better. Kevin Durant, Max, to me, is a better basketball player today in Golden State than he was 5 years ago in OKC.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue. The numbers, the stats, the winning. Like I said, I think the true test of it all will be if he goes to New York. Because if he goes to New York, puts up great stats, makes it to the playoffs really, really good, and he should get credit for doing that, especially for the Knicks. But if he doesn't win a championship, I'm telling you right now, he's taking a risk. It's a huge reward, but a huge risk if he goes. Because if he wins, he's in that top 3, top 4. Is he better than LeBron? Is he better than Kobe? But if he doesn't ever win there, people are going to say he only won when he was with Golden State.
New York, concrete jungle where dreams are made of. There's nothing you can't do. New York.
We'll see. We'll see.
That's my Alicia Keys remix, New York, Kevin Durant. Max, if that happens, my life will be on a upward tick of the greatest movie ever of Endgame, the greatest show of Game of Thrones. We got Mike Beast Boy Davis in the UFC, and if Kevin Durant and Zion Williams become Knicks, just put a bow on me. Put a bow on me. Put me in the oven for Thanksgiving. Life is grand.
There we go, guys. You can download and subscribe this podcast on any podcast platform. Locked In with Two N's, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, Spotify. Give us a 5 stars. Give us a comment. And tell a friend.
Absolutely. And definitely, our sponsors are key on this podcast, guys. We can't do it. We can't keep moving forward. We're going to city to city. We're traveling. We got the studio up. Main sponsors. Check out dugoutsportswear.com. They have everything and anything you need in any kind of sport. Check out their website, dugoutsportswear.com. Always check out our main man, Dimitri, for fit meals, one of the best guys in the industry. And, of course, Winners Bar in Port Orange, Florida. We got our main man, Jeff. Unbelievable. Check out fightbananas.com, one of the best new up-and-coming MMA websites in the galaxy.
There we go. And like always, guys, stay locked in.